baseman this year was only worth 2 defensive runs saved. Bellinger was worth 26. So that means through the course of the season with men in scoring position, Cody Bellinger at 3 different positions, mind you, combined, saved 26 runs. He also won a Gold Glove in right field. He also led all right fielders in fielding percentage. His OPS plus was 169. Rendon's was, I believe, 153, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was 153. Yelich is not going to win it because of obviously how the Brewers played, like we talked about after he went down 18-5. You know, the way that Counsell was able.
Oh, he's off to a good start. Unfortunately, you know, you have to play into September.
Yeah, but I think Bellinger's just total package of everything that he did is why he'll win it. And the last thing I'll say on the NL MVP before we move over to the American League, he was the best player on the best team in the National League before the postseason started. So I think that's why you have to give it to him, and I think a lot of the voters will think that way. It definitely won't be a unanimous selection. I think it's going to be very close. It's going to be a lot like 2016 Cy Young, where it was Porcello and Verlander duking it out. But anyway, we're going to move on to the
Well, actually, I'm going to go back to that point. I like I told you before, I like the Nationals player, but I think Bellinger will win it. Just want to make sure that what I like versus there's perception, there's reality.
Yeah.
And the reality is, you're right.
Yeah, and I appreciate your point. I think you make a very good point, Rendon. But Rendon was also aided by Juan Soto, who had another terrific
Again, there's perception and there's reality. You're right. I believe Bellinger will win it.
Yes, and we can agree on that. So now let's move to the American League MVP. So the American League MVP candidates, and this is where it's going to get a little fun, but we had this discussion already, and I wrote a piece on this, which you guys can find at the SouthFloridaTribune.com, and it's a little plug real quick, but go ahead and go to our website. I'll talk about it later tonight on our Tuesday edition of the Sports Exchange. We have a lot of really good writers on there. We have a lot of podcast links on there. I mean, it's a very good site, very nice layout. I really like the way it looks. I have my pieces on there. Scott's got stuff on there. I write baseball music and some FAU football on there. But we have a lot of good content coming for you guys. But again, back to the MVP, I have a piece on there which came out about 3 weeks ago about why I believe Mike Trout is the American League MVP. And before I talk about that, the 3 candidates, as mentioned, are Alex Bregman of the Houston Astros, third baseman, DJ LeMahieu, and the aforementioned Trout. So, Scott, before I interject, who's your MVP?
It's impossible to go against Trout. But I have once again, where my heart and my head are, I would love to see DJ LeMahieu go ahead and win it. I don't think it will happen. He's a guy that obviously has hometown roots with me. Plus, I wrote a story on him when he was with the Rockies as well.
Yeah.
But what he did in New York was unbelievable. If he has a puncher's chance to win it, it's because he's playing for the Yankees.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk about puncher's chance. But how do you go against Trout?
No.
You don't.
You can't. You don't. And I think you could say that about, he should have won it in 2012 and 13, even when Cabrera won the Triple Crown, because Trout had a better season all around than Cabrera. I mean, Trout does everything. He's a good defender. He's a good hitter. He takes his walks. He hits for power. He cuts down on the strikeouts. The one number I'll mention as to why I believe Trout will win it is this. It's games played. Now, the adverse with Yelich is that his WAR was 7.1 at the time of his injury, and he missed the final 23 games of the season. Trout played 134 games this year. But the funny thing is, his WAR by Baseball Reference was a smidge lower. It was .1 WAR lower than Alex Bregman, who had to play 22 more games to do that. The one thing that I love about Trout is he ended the year the second consecutive season of an on-base percentage above .430. That's unreal. Like, if you have a 400 on base, to me, which Bregman I believe had last year, 401, he had 423 this year because he drew 119 walks. You're pretty much a shoo-in to win the MVP. The last metric I'll refer to why I believe Trout deserves it is OPS plus. Bregman's OPS plus was 162. That's, you're going to win an MVP in most other seasons, but unfortunately he plays in the same league as Mike Trout. Mike Trout's OPS plus this year was 185, and he had 600 plate appearances, so he's more than capable of qualified for this award. I will be ecstatic if he wins it because I think he deserves like 6 MVPs at this point. He missed 1 in 17 because he broke a finger sliding into third at a game in Miami after he had a triple.
Right.
LeMahieu, as much as I love him, the only knock on him is the fact that the OPS plus is lower. It's 136. He only drew 47 walks compared to Trout's 110 and Bregman's 119. But he played plus defense at 3 positions, first base, second base, and third. 6 WAR, it's lower than Trout and Bregman, but WAR also adjusts for ballpark, which is why I really love the statistic a lot.
Right.
But again, Trout is the MVP. Bregman, if you want to, and I'll cite one more stat before we move on to the Cy Young Award because I think that's going to be really interesting as well. WAR approximates how much wins you add to a team. The Astros this year won 107 games, Scott. If you take Alex Bregman out of that lineup, say Alex Bregman plays 0 games for the Houston Astros this year, you take 8 wins away from the Houston Astros. They win 99 games. Context, the second place team in the American League West that year was the Oakland A's. They won 97 games. So even without Alex Bregman, I'd say you had Abraham Toro, the third baseman they had called up near the end, who actually made the final out, and Verlander's no-hitter, a name we'll be mentioning in just a minute. The Astros still win 99 games.
All right, I'm going to add one thing to it. And you kind of danced around it. Now I'm going to translate what I believe. You know, let's face it, ballparks are always going to be hitters' ballparks no matter where you go, whatever era they are what they are. But I do agree with you on this one. Bregman is a product of that ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean he's not a good hitter.
No, he'll hit wherever he goes.
But he's a product of that ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
he is. And there's certain guys you take out of a hitter-friendly park, and then you find out where they hit later. But he does have a bit of an advantage in that ballpark.
Yeah, the home road splits actually aren't that bad. I think the best thing about him is he just makes a lot of contact. He struck out 83 times this year, and in a time when everyone's striking out 23% of the time, when he's striking out 11, 12% of the time, half of what the league normally does, it's a very good thing. I mean, Trout struck out, I believe, 21% of the time this year, but you supplement that with the walks and the fact that he hit 45 home runs. Again, home runs are arbitrary, but I just think they tell a very good story because Angels Stadium is a much more pitcher-friendly park than Minute Maid is in Houston.
Yeah, let's talk about DJ LeMahieu for a moment. Here's a guy that played in undoubtedly the most hitter-friendly park on the planet, Coors Field, and he was hitting home runs at Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that tell you?
Yeah, the thing.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I know about. I've never been to a game at Coors Field, but I know people that have, and I will get there one day.
Mm-hmm.
But again, my point is if you can make some guys will have bigger power numbers as time goes on. I get that. But, you find out if you have a contact hitter where he goes and where they acclimate. There's a lot of – sometimes you're in dome stadiums. Sometimes you're hitting in a ballpark where that wind is blowing out. You catch a break or two, and then your numbers go up. There's so many variables, which we're not going to get into right now anyways.
Yeah, see, Coors is a hitter-friendly park because of how spacious the outfield is, where you can't really say that about Yankee Stadium. If you look at the dimensions of Coors Field, it's a very big ballpark. But the fact that the air is so dry there, and that was a problem in Arizona for a while before they got the retractable roof, is the fact that your breaking stuff doesn't break as well. That's what makes Kyle Freeland's season in 2018 with them so special. He was an 8-WAR pitcher in a stadium that's not conducive to that, and his ERA was lower at home than I believe it was on the road.
Well, Arizona has always had a retractable roof. The thing that you have to understand that when you have a retractable roof, these teams know when they want to open it versus when they don't. Yeah. So it's a discretionary thing. Yeah, in most cases you keep the roof open. Now, in the event that you have inclement weather, that's usually the only time that they ever shut it. But again, these are great things that as time goes on, we'll be able to isolate and narrow down things. And I know we're going in a lot of different directions because the award situation is dictating that. In the future, there might be times that we're going to go out there and talk about subject 15, 30 minutes nonstop and welcome the interaction that we're going to get as time goes on.
And I think the last thing we'll say about the MVP before we shift over to the Cy Young Award discussion is that they really need to just rename the damn award, in my opinion. It's called Most Valuable Player, and that's what the acronym MVP stands for. But really, what we all should be doing here and how voter methodology should work is the award should be given out to the best player in his respective league for that particular season. So rename it the Best Player Award. Just call it the BPA. I mean, I know they won't, but, funny thing is, quick story about Ty Cobb. He won the Chalmers Award in 1911. And the Chalmers Motor Company is what that award was named after. The Chalmers Award was actually the precursor to the MVP. That's what it was named. So the winner of the Chalmers Award actually got an automobile from the company.
Right.
And Trout would also give that out to whoever won a batting title. But
well, let me just preface this by saying, though, back in 1984, Willie Hernandez won the Cy Young Award and the MVP. So that was one of those rare instances where a pitcher won both of those awards. And I think what's so interesting is, why would a pitcher win both of those awards? Well, during that year, we're not talking about a one-inning closer. We're talking about a guy that at least hit about 2 or 3 and had a lot of innings. And here's a guy that was picked up by the Tigers in a trade, I believe. I'll know the logistics but I know he came from the Philadelphia Phillies for Dave Bergman, I think. was the other player involved, and I'm sure. But he was acquired in '84 trade with the Philadelphia Phillies, a trade that led him to the '84 World Series when they definitely needed a pitcher, and they couldn't rely strictly on Aurelia Lopez. So no, I know the history part.
Yeah, it's funny. There's another reliever that did that. 1992, Dennis Eckersley had a .64 ERA for the Oakland A's, and he won the Cy Young and the MVP in the American League. Though Roger Clemens should have won it that year, but
that's besides the point.
That's a discussion for another day. So with that, we're gonna move on to my favorite because I was a pitcher. I'm not gonna put myself on a pedestal, but we're gonna move on to the Cy Young Award. And long gone, unfortunately, are the days of Clayton Kershaw winning it, because obviously injuries and age have gotten in the way of that a little bit. But I'll give you the candidates real quick so then we can have this discussion. In the National League, we have the three candidates: Jacob deGrom. The other bright spot for the Mets, Hyunjin Ryu. DeGrom, by the way, 7.9 Baseball Reference WAR, most among National League pitchers. Hyunjin Ryu, 5.3 Baseball Reference WAR, and Max Scherzer, 5.8 Baseball Reference WAR. Scherzer, of course, has won it 3 times. DeGrom won last year in 2018. Now, in the American League, which is probably going to be the most contentious Cy Young race we've seen in a very long time, we have two now former teammates, Justin Verlander and Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole, 20-5, obviously a league-leading 2.5 ERA and league-leading 185 ERA plus, led all baseball actually. 6.8 Baseball Reference WAR to Justin Verlander, 7.8 Baseball Reference WAR. Then you have Charlie Morton of the Tampa Bay Rays, who had a very good year, though he missed some time. Still a 5-win season. He went 16-6, a 3.05 ERA. Now, you can start whichever league you want. Give me your Cy Young candidate.
All right, so let's go back to the National League again.
Sure. So you have DeGrom, Ryu, and Scherzer.
I'm going to go. I'd like to go with Scherzer. I don't think his body of work's good enough.
No.
DeGrom, I would have to go Ryu. I would.
Yeah.
Right now, Max Scherzer finally had some postseason success, but again, like we talked about, these aren't based on postseason. DeGrom got it with the Mets. But when you talk about the fact that they didn't get in the playoffs, and then Ryu, that's the deciding factor for me.
The problem with Ryu, and I see your point, he was on a playoff team, is Ryu missed over a month with a back injury.
Right.
The thing is, other of those 3 pitchers, DeGrom's the one who made every single start.
Right.
His WAR was the highest, so he was the most valuable pitcher in the league. He actually believe he led the National League in strikeouts this year. He's posted 2 consecutive seasons of a walks, hits per innings pitch, a WHIP, which is a very nice metric. It takes into account all that you allow throughout the course of a season of sub-1. There's not that many pitchers that have done that. Kershaw's done that. I believe Scherzer's done it. And then, obviously, Pedro Martinez has done that. But I think DeGrom's going to win it again, and I'd vote for him, despite the fact that he only won 11 games. But it's something that we need to outline here, and I would actually love to do a show based on this topic about why wins as a pitcher statistic are arbitrary and why they're not important in deciding these awards, because obviously DeGrom also posted an ERA of 2.43, second best in the National League. He was clearly the best pitcher, and he has more innings than Ryu. He has like 40 more innings than Ryu this year. So he's my pick. He was just...
So you're going with DeGrom.
Yeah, well, he has, then to be exact, he has 21 and a third more innings than Ryu, but Ryu also doesn't have the swing and miss that DeGrom had. DeGrom 255 strikeouts this year. Scherzer 243 and 172 in the third innings.
Well, Scherzer could always make a case for it, but I agree with you that wins. Although that hasn't happened until just recently, though.
Felix Hernandez in 2013.
Well, that's where I was going with it. Yeah, a lot of guys. But so down the road, if we ever decide to do a show on that, we can talk about how the fewest wins, and if we came up with 5. That's something for down the road, but not at this particular point in time.
Yeah, because I don't think you can necessarily blame a pitcher. Like, the pitcher just pitches. He doesn't, DeGrom is a good hitter in his own right. He actually hit a couple of home runs for the Mets this year. But in his own right, DeGrom he flat out dominated like no other pitcher in the National League has the last couple of years. One of the best pitching seasons in recent memory. Last season, a 1.7 ERA. To do that over 33 starts is insane.
Well, not only that, let me incorporate another point into what you're talking about, too. Wins were more of a factor then, but the problem is now you've brought in quality starts to 5 to 6 innings. You don't know what the heck's supposed to happen between 5 and 9, how many no decisions get lost in the shuffle. So, I think that's something that nowadays, today's game versus what it was when I was growing up, when the win totals will be much lower, unless you have that rare bird like Verlander. It's another story. But who's able to pitch in any era. but that's something we'll get to in a moment.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know.